Corinne.
Hi. Is President Biden considering stepping down?
Absolutely not. And you heard, I believe, directly from the campaign as well.
Given the groundswell of concern from fellow Democrats, from donors, from supporters, doesn't he owe it to the American public to reflect on whether he should step down?
I mean, look, very much into Sung Min's question and my answer to her question, where he had an opportunity to talk to supporters. He's done it a couple times at this point and laid out what happened on that night. Talked about how he understands, and it was not his best night. He understands that it is fair for people to ask that question. But we cannot forget his record and what he's been able to do. We cannot forget how he has been able to deliver for the American people for almost 4 years. That matters too. And he has the most historic record administration, the most in modern politics, and that should matter. And he wants to continue to do that work. And, you know, a lot of what's on his agenda is very much popular with majority of the American people, whether it's continuing to build a strong economic policies. He's done that. Creating new jobs, he's done that. 15 million jobs. He wants to work on that and continue to do that. And so he wants to continue to deliver, expanding healthcare. All of these things he believes is important. Majority of Americans believe it's important. And his record, he wants to make sure that people do not forget about the record that he's been able to lay on behalf of the American people.
Is there anything, Corinne, that would change his mind?
Look, I cannot lay out something that would change the president's mind. He has been very clear, and he's going to continue to build on the unprecedented record that he's been able to lay out for the American people. That's his focus right now. That's what you saw.
Is there any discussion that if the president were to suspend his campaign, that he would also resign? Are there any discussions about the vice president assuming his duties?
Absolutely not.
So can you be straight with us and the American people? Is the president clear-eyed about what it takes to stay in the race and what it would take for him to drop out?
The president is clear-eyed, and he is staying in the race. I don't have anything else beyond that. He's staying in the race. That is what the president is promised to do. That is what he wants to continue to work on, the successes that he's had, his record, his unprecedented record, and that is what the president is focused on, continuing to deliver for the American people.
President Biden was fatigued during the debate because of overseas travel that was 12 days beforehand, like he said he was last night. Doesn't that raise questions about his ability to effectively serve a second term until he's 86 years old?
I mean, look, I think there's multiple factors here to consider. There was the travel led to a cold, and I think that matters as well. And I think we've all been there. It is not unusual. And what the president did is he pushed through. He pushed forward and he pushed through. And that's what you saw him do. And look, you know, you heard me say this yesterday, and you heard directly from the president say this multiple times. When you get knocked down, you get back up. Joe Biden is someone who has faced, tragedies, and he's taken them on. And when he does that, he gets right back up. And that's how we see that day. That's how we see that night.
Thank you. Thanks, Corinne. Can you share any details on President Biden's and Vice President Harris's lunch today? Do you know if they discussed Vice President Harris potentially taking over? Do you know if that came up today?
I mean, I just stated that the president is not dropping out. That's something that the campaign has shared. So I'm just repeating what the campaign has shared. They regularly have lunch, and I'm not going to get into private conversation. And I would also say that the vice president spoke to CBS just yesterday, and you could see what she said herself, and I think that's important to note as well.
You mentioned a few times that the president's proud of his record. He wants to continue his work and building on that record. I'm trying to understand how that's relevant to an assessment, a self-reflection by him on whether or not he's physically capable of continuing.
I think it is an assessment. I think the fact that he's able to work across the aisle, get really big bipartisan legislation done. He's been able to get us out of the pandemic, able to get the economy back on its feet. I think that shows leadership. And I think that's important, right? He is making these decisions on behalf of the American people. And he's able to do that because of his experience, because of his wisdom. And I think that's all connected as well. We can't forget that.